You might not even be aware of something that you might be doing. Something that's devaluing you, something that's actually taking away from you, and something that might actually be negatively affecting your dignity. On today's video, I'm going to be spotlighting that situation, how to understand why we do it, and how to overcome it. Okay, so on today's video, I'm going to be talking about the thing that we do that often undermines our dignity and undermines our self-respect and our self-worth, and has a tendency of devaluing the words that we actually speak. And what is that? It's over-explaining ourselves. Why do we over-explain ourselves? We over-explain ourselves because we want to be understood. But first, we got to figure out why we do it. First of all, I want to say one thing. Lengthy explanations are really not ever that necessary. Nobody really wants to know that much information, and it's definitely not required for you to explain yourself. Remember, this can take us down the rabbit hole, and also this becomes a field day for people who are highly manipulative. Anytime that you become over-explaining in anything you're doing around manipulative people that want to manipulate you, they're going to use this information to target you, and then they're going to switch it up on you. Okay, so let's continue. Why do we over-explain? The first reason we over-explain oftentimes is that we want to avoid being judged negatively. Okay, so somebody asks you a question and you give them this long over-explanation because you don't want them to judge you in a bad way or see you in a bad light. And so you think if you give them all this information that it's going to be a lot better. When often in reality, it just adds to more confusion, but it also exposes a lot of things that makes you, well, it kind of adds to that negative judgment. And if somebody's already judging you negatively, why are you even explaining to them anything about your life? The second thing is we want to be understood. None of us want to be misunderstood. I know my whole life as a kid, I always wanted to over-explain everything so everybody always knew where I was coming from, caused more questions than answers, and usually I always felt like kind of stupid afterwards because I felt like I'd given my life story on something that didn't even deserve it. But often I think that when we're feeling as though we're being misunderstood, are we really being misunderstood? Or does that person not want to really understand your point of view? Do they not want to accept your answer? Or is there a manipulative quality to the whole situation all in all? Another reason why we over-explain is to get out of that judgment one way or another. And last but not least is the fear of what the other person is going to actually think about you. And I feel also that we feel that our answer is not good enough, so we continue to supply more information. And that's where I feel that our dignity gets taken, is we automatically devalue how we feel. We should have the ability to feel one way or another. We should have the ability to say yes or no to any given situation. It's us. They don't have to fulfill the obligation. They're asking you to fulfill an obligation. And if you don't want to do it, or you don't have to have time, or you don't have the time to do it, then why do you sign up for something that you don't want to do? Because as you know, many of you watching this video right now, you've signed up for something, you've agreed to something you don't want to do, and it's painful. It's truly painful. And then sometimes what happens is we agree to do something we don't want to do, and we don't do it, and then there is negative judgment when all we had to say is, hey, I would really love to help you, but I'm too busy. Okay, good luck with all that. Maybe it's not exactly what they wanted to hear, but that's a lot better than saying yes, dropping the ball, and then getting the negative judgment after that about how you don't follow through. So the reasons that we want to stop this, besides the fact that you probably felt beaten down, emotionally beaten down, or you felt like you couldn't stand your ground, the first thing that goes back to dignity is that it devalues what you're saying. Okay, so before it devalues you as a person, but when you actually over-explain yourself, it devalues what you're saying. So what you're saying doesn't hold water as much. It's not as important as much. How many found that when you respond back with a nice, concise answer, it seems to be more well-received? Isn't it interesting how when you have conversations that are concise and to the point when you respond back, people don't question you? They don't question you because you don't give them any room to question you, okay? And so that's a big deal, is that you really want to stand behind your word. Words are very powerful, and I found that oftentimes the best way to have a conversation, even if you're scared of hurting someone's feelings or worried about what they're going to say, is getting to the point, concise and to the point response that's telling your truth. Because they might not take it right, but as long as it's the truth, it's still the truth. You know, the second thing is that when we over-explain ourselves, it confuses the situation. Okay, when you over-explain yourself, all of a sudden your answer or response to something that somebody's asked you is diluted and it's confusing. Kind of similar to creating boundaries in relationships after the fact. So after somebody's already walked past you or walked all over you, then you try to create the boundaries. So you kind of like try to like backtrack it. And what happens? It becomes tough. It becomes challenging. And it also seems a little odd because now you're like just now enforcing these boundaries. It's the same thing when you can step up to the plate and be honest. It might not be the easiest thing to say, but it's truthful and you don't have to dilute the truth. The next thing you want to think about is that when we do this, another reason to stop is that it lowers our self-confidence in what we're trying to say. Okay? Anytime I've ever over-explained myself, I literally just kind of felt beaten down. And I also felt a little, well, not stupid, but just kind of stupid for the fact that I felt like I didn't have enough self-confidence to speak my own truth. Okay? And I know sometimes it's hard when you're dealing with family, when you're dealing with the boss, when you're dealing with those types of people. But you have to remember, when we're speaking our truth and we're saying what we need to say and we're having to step up to the plate for ourselves, we have to be honest and authentic. And the only way to really be honest and authentic, I think, is by just stating the truth and stating how you truly feel. And I've realized that adding a bunch of words and adding a bunch of backstory isn't going to do that at all. What that's going to do is that's going to devalue what you're saying. It's going to devalue yourself internally. Last but not least, is that we need to trust our own voice. And when we over-explain, we're not trusting ourselves. We're showing ourselves that how we feel is not good enough, that we need to hide it, mask it, put it in a sheep's clothing, do whatever. But in reality, you know what the thing is that what we have to say is great. What we have to say might not please everybody all the time, but you know what? When you're honest with yourself and you're good with your deed and you're honest and you say how you feel, it makes you feel good, okay? And eventually you'll be around the people that also feel good around you by being around you because they trust you because you're honest, okay? Honesty is always the best policy, and over-explaining to me has always been the way around it, but yet it seems to always get you into trouble because somehow or not there's a caveat that can be used. And last but not least, if you are surrounded by somebody who is trying to manipulate you or who is a highly skilled manipulator, over-explaining is almost like death. You don't want to do it, okay? Because it opens the door, it opens the side door, it opens the back door, it opens a window to getting into manipulating you when all you had to do is specifically make a statement and end the conversation there. Okay, you didn't have to keep going down the rabbit hole, but when you did, you opened those doors for them to question you, to question your answer, to raise questions about why you said something, and the list goes on. So when we stop over-explaining ourselves, what happens is we defend ourselves, we speak the truth, and we actually command respect because we're not trying to devalue what we're saying. We actually care about what we're saying, and we feel the truth about what we're saying, and we're okay with saying it. I hope this video has helped you, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And in the comments section below, I'm interested. Let me know, when was the last time you over-explained yourself, and how did it work out? I've done it many times, and most of the time it was painful, or I just felt stupid, or I felt manipulated. So I want to know how you felt and how you dealt with it. In the meantime, don't forget to live your true life.